Hey guys, it's Tomatoda. Do you like my hamster sweater? Oh, that's my bra. Today's video is about my Squeakoid keycaps, which is a continuation of one of my videos from 9 months ago. This was supposed to be a part 2 video slash tutorial, but there are so many hiccups along the way that it's been delayed until now, and on top of that, it's no longer a tutorial. However, I will show you guys the process I went through to make them because I do still have footage of that. So to begin, I used a DSA profile keycap base. And using some scrap polymer clay, I added it onto the plastic keycap and began sculpting the Animal Crossing cliff. I made 2 of them just for shits and giggles. These cliffs are actually just a model, which is why I'm using scrap clay because the color doesn't matter. Once the sculpting was done, I baked them in my oven for about 15 minutes. I mentioned this in my previous video, but these plastic keycaps are made out of PBT material, so it can withstand higher temperatures, which is how it survives the baking process. After baking, I casted a silicone mold of them. I do have an in-depth tutorial of this process on my YouTube, which is actually the Squeakoid video, if you guys want to know about this in more detail. Anyways, I put the model bases upside down into a container, I guess. I'll call it a container. And I mixed and poured in my silicone. After a few hours, the mold is cured, and here I'm just demolding everything. Now, in my new mold, I'm going to cast a bunch of cliffs using clear UV resin. I'm basically making more model keycap cliffs so that I can cast one huge mold. So instead of making like 2 keycaps at a time with the mold that I have right now, I can make 20-ish at once later. And the reason why I planned it like this is because I wanted to use epoxy resin for the final keycap casting, and this would help me get more consistency in the results and also save me time. Also, I want to mention that with every other UV resin I've used, whenever I try to cast it into a silicone mold, the silicone doesn't cure fully. But with Mr. Resin UV resin, it does cure fully. After the big silicone mold is cured, I began the casting process. Like I said before, my original plan was to make the bases out of epoxy resin and not UV resin because I wanted the base to be very opaque. I don't know why, but it's just the image that I had in my head, and I was really stuck on the idea of it being opaque. So the resin casting took several days because I had to wait about 4 to 6 hours in between each layer, and there were about 5 layers of brown and 2 layers of green, if I remember correctly. And unfortunately, when I demolded the base, it was a fail. Like, where did all the layers go? You can only see like 3 distinct layers of colors. So I tried it a second time, and I made sure to pour a little bit on the side like a sample to keep track of the different brown shades so that they don't blend into each other again. But this time, I was also using a new resin because I ran out of my other one. The other one was like the regular Aluminite clear cast epoxy, which is what I've used for years. And the new epoxy resin that I was using was by Aluminite 2. However, it was the enhanced UV protection version. I thought it would be better because, first of all, it's more expensive and it had more UV protection, which means less yellowing. But it sucked. Well, in my experience, okay? All the projects I made with this specific epoxy resin never cured hard. Whether it was a big volume project or a small volume project, didn't matter. It would just never cure solidly, and it always ended up being bendy. When I demolded my second attempt, the color of the layers were just absolutely perfect, and I was so happy with how it looked like. But here's where the bendiness fucked it up for me. Do you see how everything is just so bendy? I can even remove the stems with my hand. Not only is that bad, but bendy stems also means that it's gonna pop out of the keyboard. So for the next few days, I tried so many things to salvage the stem, but ultimately the best solution was to just start over. However, after wasting 2 weeks on this project, I lost all motivation. I am already not a long-term project type of gal, and typically if a project takes more than 3 days, I just kick it aside. So the fact that I was working on this for 2 weeks was already pushing my limit and my willpower. And since then, whenever I thought about this project, I figuratively wanted to puke. So I took a small break, which ended up being 9 months. And then as I was making my New Year's video, I decided to put my foot down and say, let's finish this. Here is the results. I ultimately ended up using UV resin to cast the base because going through that epoxy resin was going to drive me nuts. The base isn't completely opaque, but I think it's good enough. Honestly, I don't know why I was so obsessed with the opaque aspect because the Squeakoids aren't opaque. This, however, was actually my second UV resin attempt. Here is my first attempt. The colors weren't quite right, and although the second attempt looks similar to the first attempt, I think the second attempt looks less blended in. Both times, I did leave a small sample on the side, and the colors of the layers look good here, but it didn't translate the same on the keycaps, and I think it's because this part is so thin. And also for these bases, I used Handcrafter UV resin because I still had this new whole bottle left. But for the coating layers, I used Mr. Resin because I've noticed a few differences between the brands. I mean, they're both solid brands, and my initial thought was that they perform the same, but now I do see some differences. So in my next video, I'm going to go over the two brands. Here's the B grade ones I practiced on first. For the colors in the creases here, I painted the details using acrylic paint, and at the time I thought it looked good, but after I finished coating the keycaps, I didn't like it. It was too dark and it was too harsh. Maybe it was just too harsh. But there was no going back with these four because I already did the coating. So with the other ones, I painted the creases with a lighter color, but that also didn't look good. So I had to scrape off and remove all the paint. And after experimenting a bit, I decided that using my gel nail polish was the best bet. The color is somewhat similar to the acrylic painted ones, but it's less harsh looking. And you can see I changed the paintings here too that differentiate the grass from the cliff. Now I'm going to put the Squeakoid keycaps on my keyboard, but first let me introduce you to the sponsor of this video, XVX Keyboards. This is their website, and as you can see, they have really cute keycap sets, and they also have beautiful keyboards. This one is my favorite, but the one I have is the Polymer K98. Not 100% sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but phonetically it's spelled Polymer. Anyways, I asked for this one because it's blue, which is my favorite color, and I thought it would go along with any keycap that I make. Like, the design won't clash. Kind of like having black in your wardrobe, it just matches with any outfit. Here are the Squeakoids on the keyboard. As you can tell, the profile is definitely taller than the other keys, so it does stand out, but I wanted to be like that because it's a cliff. Here's how the Squeakoids look individually. These ones are the B grade ones. Now, I'm going to plug it into my computer so you can see the RGB lighting. When I asked XVX if they had anything specifically they wanted me to mention about their keyboards, they did say the RGB lighting and also that it is hot swappable. As you can see, these keyboards have brown switches, but you can always change them to other ones. And my apologies to XVX Keyboard that this video is so freaking late. Like I said before, it was supposed to be due last year, but it didn't happen. And I'm just very, very thankful that they haven't harassed. Ow. My braces keep biting my cheeks. Anyways, I'm continuing. XVX Keyboards, they actually haven't harassed me about this video. They like asked me about it once and I said it's coming, and then they just left it up to that. I don't know if they forgot about me, but thank you XVX Keyboards for being patient. I'm gonna assume you guys are just being patient. So if you guys are interested in their keyboards, go check out their Instagram and their website. It'll be in the description box below. I will be selling these keycaps on my website, hopefully this month or next month, we'll see. If you guys want more info or updates about it, I will be posting on my Instagram, because that's just the platform that I use to communicate in real time-ish. So if you guys are interested, follow me on Instagram. But thank you guys for watching my journey, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!